they get to see a proud black fella walk the streets of Sydney barefoot, paint on, with absolutely no F's given. I'm walking with pride, and whatever they view me as, they can't stop me. And that's a part of the positive reinforcement I need to show kids out there. They struggle with identity. Not all of them. A lot of kids, Indigenous people, struggle with this identity and where we sit in society. So to show that we all walk with strength and walk with heart is the number one goal of my work.
Hey, thanks for tuning in again. Here we are, Season 2, Episode 6 of 30 Minute Call, proudly presented by the Canberra Theatre Centre, and we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we created this podcast, the people of the Ngunnawal Nation. We extend our friendship and respect to their elders past, present and emerging. Now, that's something that I always say if ever I'm hosting something here in Canberra, but it never occurred to me to acknowledge country before our podcast until this episode, and it seems like a good time to start. My name is Joe Gleeson, and my guest today is Luke Currie-Richardson, a storyteller, a proud Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander man who graced CTC with many a performance during his time with Bangarra. He still leads a very creative life, and today we get to hear a little bit about what brought him to this point and what life is like for a promoter of pride in First Nations culture and identity in 2020. I was really looking forward to having Luke on the show, and I was really happy when he did agree to spend a bit of time with me. I loved the chat. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Luke Currie-Richardson, this is your 30-minute call. Yan Yaramburu, Luke. I just learnt that this week. It means hello, good morning in the language of one of the clans right here in Ngunnawal country. How are you, mate?
Nice, brother. Nice, man. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
That's good.
What a way to welcome, man. That's amazing. We should be learning languages of our local,
absolutely,
local traditional landowners. So and I grew up, did my high schooling there in Canberra, and I didn't learn that. I didn't learn a simple greeting.
Well,
it wasn't accessible for me. So
like I say, I only learnt that this week. We're doing this live streaming offering here at Canberra Theatre Centre at the moment, where because it's a bit quieter, we've got some streaming going on, and there was a kids program brought to us by two guys by the name of Adam and Richie. Richie is a local Ngunnawal guy, and Wiradjuri is where Adam is from, which I believe is around the Dubbo area, and they had just this great little show that would taught kids about bush medicine and
I know Adam. I went to school with him.
Oh, did you?
I think it's the same. Yeah, I think it's the same Adam we're talking about.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah. And it was great. It was awesome. I was right into it. My kids were watching and we were asking questions, and I was like, hey, kids, do you mind if I ask? Because I've been wondering for ages, how do you say hello in Ngunnawal? And as Richie said, look, there's lots of clans in Ngunnawal country, but he said the clan that I'm from, you could say Yan or Yan Yaramburu as like a good morning. And I was stoked. I was like, finally, and I feel good about that. It's nice.
It's nice to hear language being spoken, even though it's not my traditional tongue and something. I've grown up away from my traditional country. But language is so integral to who we are. It influences song, dance, story. We're oral teachers, so for that to, even that little saying to live through you, it's going to be continued, so that it's nice. It's really nice to hear that.
Well, that's my kids and I are going to be saying it to each other in the morning because I think it's nice. They've got to be connected to that culture of the land that they live on, and you got to be so proud. I hear like my New Zealand friends, they come over from New Zealand and they use Maori words, sort of.
My bro, I grew up going, kia ora, it's just a thing, we try to, and it's so easily accessible. Also, the difference in history,
Yes.
Their language is quite strong over there, but so is our culture here. But yeah, it's just I knew more of those sayings and that when I was growing up than I did of my local area in Canberra.
It's crazy, isn't it? Crazy to me.
100%.
With you, I think it's beautiful too. Like you're saying, "Yan Yaramburu" in the morning it rolls off the tongue. It's a lot more satisfying to say than "good morning." It's beautiful. It's a beautiful. It's so many beautiful words, isn't there?
Well, yeah, but I think, and I don't mean any disrespect here to the English people, but English language is so shallow. I feel.
Yeah.
And the deep connection with language, with people talk about French being beautiful or other languages, and English is like really, you get down to the nitty gritty of it, and if it's not finely written in poetry, and I'm just like, and then you open up another dialect of language and indigenous language, and you hear how you say hello, and it resonates with you, and language has more meaning than just everyday conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the importance is with us. Is language is ceremony. Language is dance, is knowledge. It's so much more than just a passing conversation. And at this point in time, with language dying, it's actually quite important cultural currency in a sense. It's trying to find that hidden treasure. Man.
Yeah, it's wild that we don't know more of it. And I understand the difficulties of there's so many clans, there's so many different ways to say all the words across Australia. But I understand those challenges. But there's in your local area, there shouldn't be anything stopping us from learning that and keeping it alive.
Yeah, I would love to have I don't know, I've just recently come back from Canada not recently, late last year. And some of the places they have bilingual signage,
right?
Which, but not really traditional languages, because I think it was Montreal. They had the French and the English, and then on the other side it was the English and French. And I was like, oh man, it's possible to accommodate that. It's
yeah.
Again, we are a minority. Actually, I don't like minority. It's just a little negative. We are exclusive. We're an exclusive little club here in Australia.
Yeah.
But I don't see how you could have welcome and then just have a welcome sign in the local language.
Absolutely.
Underneath it, or side by side, not even underneath it. To not belittle it. Just hello, and then the language there. That would be great.
Yeah, it would be so easy to do. Yeah. To give everyone a bit of a background and a quick history of Luke. Luke is, I'm very excited to have him on as a guest. He was born in Cairns. Primary school happened for him in Brizzy. High school here in Canberra. Then back up to Queensland to study. Before that, there was a short period where he and I played a bit of basketball together, which was a very important part of Luke's life, I'm sure. Went up to Queensland to study. From there, he was picked up by Bangarra Dance Company. And if you're not familiar with Bangarra, if you're listening to this podcast, you may well be. An Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander performing arts company. All of their dancers are amazing, very talented, and have a proud Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander background. Luke has performed many times at CTC with Bangarra. Your mum and dad are still here in Canberra, and I mean, they must have been very special moments when you're able to come back, perform in front of mum and dad, surely.
Man, actually, I didn't grow up dancing, like you said. I grew up playing basketball, rugby league, with very strong rugby league family.
Oh, yeah.
My first, I guess, vivid memory of watching Bangarra was at Canberra Theatre in 2007, I think it is.
Yeah, wow.
They did a double bill with Emirate Lou and a Francis X300, I think it was called.
Right.
And at the time, growing up in Canberra, my first taste of dance was traditional Torres Strait Island dancing. Fellow Canberrans there, someone might some people might know him, Paddy Mills, also Tim Cornforth there in Canberra, family-run group, Gerb Stick.
Yeah.
And there was a Torres Strait. I think Emirate Lou was the piece that was done, choreographed by Alma Chris, and it was a Torres Strait Island piece, and it just it hit me. It resonated with me, and it just gave me this drive to be like, I can do that. Like,
yeah,
I can do that. And
have you always had like a as a kid? Did you always just have a good rhythm and a good feel of movement and dance, or is this something that you had?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't until I moved to Canberra. And I can remember growing up in Brisbane. Mum and dad listened to their music. I didn't have at a young age a taste for music. I think my first ever single on the CD was the Pokemon M2M, like some trash like that. Trash. And then it wasn't until I met my cousins. We had family gatherings, and they would dance. Like, all the adults would be outside partying and whatever, and the young ones would be in the lounge room listening to music. And I got introduced to hip hop, and I got introduced to like ciphers and dance circles, and it was just the cousins in this little lounge room, which was Paddy included, Timmy, Jacqueline Cornforth, Fee, like all my cousins. I'm just giving all shout outs now. Alicia Hodges, we would all be in this room just jamming away, and that was the first time where I was, I guess, introduced to rhythm and beat, and and really welcomed and openly being able to openly express whatever it was I was feeling inside. So I don't think I grew up with it, but thinking about it now innately, Indigenous people are storytellers, and dance is one of the main platforms we do tell stories. So, yeah.
It's like I was saying, like when you're able to study this and learn it and have an amazing show put together that you're proud of, and then come back to Canberra and your mum and dad are there in the audience, does it feel different coming out on stage when that's happening?
Canberra's a tough one, to be honest with you. Like, the theatre is the biggest theatre out of the main stage tours that Bangarra does, or used to do when I was with them.
Right.
I think it seats like 1,200 people. Like that.
And you guys
and then you've got that little space in between the stage and the audience. You've got that like little half semicircle thing that like it's another probably 2 meters in between the stage and the audience. So it's a bit of a disconnect, and you've got to project like amazingly. There's like such a big theatre.
Yeah, right.
But it does feel different. Mum and dad grew up watching me play rugby league and football, and then island dancing on top of that. And now here I am with one of Australia's leading dance companies, theatre companies, art companies. And there were some nights, I can remember that some nights I wouldn't come on an opening where the obligated, standing ovation would happen. They'd come on another night or something like that. And there was sometimes some memories there where wherever they were in that big 1,200 theatre, mum and dad would always stand up, and it's just that unwavering support as a man, that grew up in a family, my immediate family, that weren't artists. We were all sporting heads.
Yeah, right.
Were just easily accepted me, to be a dancer, and I know friends and that dance I went to uni with that parents really were against it.
Oh, really?
We're really against dancing. I got one friend who went on to be in a couple of musicals and lives in New York at the moment. His brother was a lawyer, and his other one was a doctor.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be an artist, and a super talented artist at that. Would pick up a trumpet and learn, and piano, and dancing, and
one of those people. Yep.
Yeah, and I remember him coming to uni one day and being absolutely in tears because his parents hated what he did for a living.
Oh no!
But my parents were always, it brings a tear to my thinking about just the absolute blessing I have.
Yeah.
As parents and as guardians that just allowed me to pursue whatever it was, whether it was my flailing basketball career or my my dance career, my artistic ventures as well.
That's an important relationship to you with your mum and dad, isn't it?
Yeah, with my family, you know, and you don't realize this stuff as you get older, you know, the importance. And I was never one to rebel against my family, you know. They laid the law down, they laid the smack down pretty good. But you see it happening, and you see what they've ingrained in you, and you just it's hard not to compare your life with others when you know how hard others have it and how good others have it. But man, I'm absolutely blessed with, you know, growing up there in Canberra for one, you know, and with the family that I have, and wouldn't trade them for the world.
Tell us about your mob, Luke.
Oh man, this is a tough one. You know, I grew up away from country, or majority of my life.
Yeah.
So my dad, he's a Kuku-Yalanji Jabberkai man from far north Queensland. That's his Aboriginal heritage.
Yep.
On his mother's side, she's a Miriam woman from Murray Island in the Torres Strait, the Sunset clan, from the Sunset clan.
Right.
My mother, she's a southeast Queensland and New South Wales, I guess. She's Mununjali, which is Bow Desert, Fingal, Tweed, all like that surrounding area. But also, few years back, we're from also Fraser Island, a Bachelor clan up there as well. So,
wow. You've got
the Wheelers from there, and then we got the Curries from down southeast Queensland, and then the Richardsons up north, and
all over the place.
Blessed, you know.
Yeah.
And my auntie, she sent me some reportings on the family side in the Torres Strait on Murray Island, and was saying that my ancestors, there were two groups of people, and I'm just going to be a bit brief here, so I'm not too sure clearly. My side were traditionally, I think, the gardeners, and the gardeners were also the dancers of ceremony. And it absolutely blew my mind that I found my way into dance career, you know, at 18, 19 years old, not knowing that my ancestors did this way back when, you know. And the other ones were like something along the lines of like the fishermen and the songmen and women. So
that's magic.
Yeah, it blew my mind. So I was like I'm a proper dancer. Yeah, I was like, it's in my blood.
Yeah. Oh, how great. Yeah.
But that's who I am. You know, I live with my culture. You know, I wear it on my sleeve day in, day out. And you take away dance, you take away art, you take away whatever it may be, you know, marketing or whatever. At the end of the day, I'm still Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander from those clans.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of pride in that, and I grew up making sure that I am Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander, knowing that I know that, and knowing that, you know, there's nothing to be ashamed of about that. You walk pride, you walk with power.
Yeah. That's great. As a dancer, do you actually set yourself a goal of dancing with Bangarra, didn't you? This wasn't just something that happened and you're like, oh yeah, all right. Like that was actually your goal.
It was, yeah. I think my last year playing basketball, I guess, with Vikings down there, tugging on Vikings.
Yeah.
Was 18, I think it was 18, maybe 19. And at that time, I was transitioning into dance. You know, Jackie Cornforth, another cousin of mine, she danced with the youth ensemble there, Quantum Leap, now known as QL2, over in Gorman House there. And it was that weird transition where, I don't know, Paddy went off to the States, and a few of the other friends went off overseas, played college ball, and another cousin went to New Zealand to play rugby. And I was in Canberra, and I didn't want to be a public servant. That was, my dad's a public servant, my mum was a public servant, cousins and all that, uncles, aunties. I just didn't want to be a public servant. I don't, you know, and they come out of school and going straight into those graduate programs. I can't do that.
Yeah. I can't imagine you doing that.
Look, I've considered it, but I can't imagine it. Now, my dad was like, no, it'll kill you. And I was like, I'll take your advice. And that's no offense to the public servants out there, you know.
Yeah.
But she took me to this audition, and I did some dance at Arundel College. A huge shout out to Susan Johnson. I think she's at Canberra College now. She got me into it and really encouraged me to get into it as well, into the contemporary dance. And then Jackie took me to this audition, and it was just like, if I'm going to do this audition, I'm not doing it for a laugh. Like, I need to go in and I need to do it for a reason. And being a black person, Indigenous, everyone knows, well, of Bangarra. You'd like to hope so, what they stand for, what they do. And that was the goal, you know. I was like, okay, I'm going to audition for Bangarra. I'm going to see how it goes. If I like it, I'm going to audition for Mesa. And then the goal is for me to be dancing in the Sydney Opera House in 5 years' time.
Wow.
I got to dance in the Sydney Opera House in 2 years' time.
What?
But yeah, it was in. I think I made it to Bangarra with 4 years and 3 months of official dance training from that day. So
far out. You're good at writing down those goals and sticking to them, by the sounds of that.
Then, to be honest, that was the only really real goal that I set out. You know, I had the goal of playing in the NBA when I was younger, but I never wrote that down.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't until, you know, Paddy, a pretty close brother of mine, I stayed at his house and I saw the list of goals that he wanted to achieve and tick off. And here I am laying on the mattress on the floor seeing AIS, EMU's gold medal, Boomers training camp, and I was just like, well, damn.
Yeah.
And I took a page out of that book and just like, well, I need to write down my goals now. You know, he's already gone off to the States, and I'm still here in Canberra. So what do I need to do to achieve greatness? You know, or my idea of greatness, and let's start down by writing out my goals, and that is exactly what I do.
It's a powerful process, isn't it? It's just putting it out in the world and. Yeah,
it is, and visualizing it, seeing it there instead of just having it in your mind.
Yeah.
100%.
So then, obviously, you're in Bangarra. You toured internationally. You've seen amazing places all over the world. What's the difference between performing for an audience in, like, say, I don't know, New York to Australia?
Oh, you're going to break this down a little bit even more, man. So, New York to Australia. To remote communities in Australia.
Yeah, right.
The biggest fulfillment, I guess, was performing for remote communities in Australia on a basketball court.
Cool.
Torres Strait, outdoor. You know, there's like cement stages in parks, like back in the day, like one of those on Thursday Island, a basketball court in Yirrkala, Northeast Arnhem, a basketball court in Marie, South Australia, near the Lake Eyre. Those are the ones that resonate with me, you know, with a community of 130 or
intimate,
couple of really intimate, and all theatre etiquette is thrown out the window. Dogs are coming on stage, birds are pooing. It is everything. It is
awesome.
That is amazing. You go to, and that's what we need to. It's hard because as an Indigenous person coming into a theatre. I guess it's the traditional setting of a theatre. It's not a very safe space. It's not a black space. It was traditionally a white space, and for the fancy or the rich. So when you get and community nights, we love community nights. I love community nights for Bangarra because black people, Indigenous people, will be there yelling out and cheering, and that's the vibe, you know. And that's how we go. We're very celebratory. We're not, and then you go back into those theatres, and then sometimes it was just like a little bit soul sucking in some of those things. Like it's just like, ooh, like it would be. Canberra was very difficult, but I love Canberra because of my connection. But it was, some nights was just like, oh, they were really polite and conservative, and then it was like, let's go. But then there would be the mixture of like, because it's such a big theatre, it is a huge theatre. You'd have like quiet, and then you'd have like the amazing, like really enthusiastic people. I'm like, but
right.
And then New York City, what's it like? I found that when I performed in places like Mongolia, Vietnam, Turkey, they were so open and welcoming with, because they're still connected to their culture. So another people, like when you go and perform in another country that has, I guess, a strong connection to their cultural identity or cultural song dance, that they understood where we were coming from. And I find that even though Bangarra does have a really great backing in this country, it's just not the same. I'm not too sure how to articulate that. One, I'm not actually great with my words. That's why I chose dancing as a career.
Well, I think you're doing pretty bloody well so far, mate.
But yeah, it's just an observation that I took, you know, like,
yeah.
And I don't know if it's, you know, just people seeing a company from outside of their own country when we're overseas. That's excitement as well. But
yeah,
a whole heap of things play into it. But I always felt that, you know, not so much New York and Paris and stuff like that, but more so those like Asian countries, Middle East, and all those other countries were really really wanted to talk to you and get to know you. In Japan,
cool.
I was like, whoa, okay, yeah, cool.
Wow, that's cool. So you were dancing with Bangarra from 2012 through to 2018. Correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me about what was going on with you when you decided, I'm going to stop dancing with Bangarra now.
Oh man, this is a tough one. It could get me in trouble. But yeah, things weren't going well for me. A lot of depression mentally. I didn't feel like I was being treated right there. And this is just my personal experience. And just like any other place, any other workplace, there's internal politics as well. And
sure.
I just felt like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. It was a dream of mine when I was here in Canberra dancing in Gorman House. And I remember one incident where I was walking home from the opera house and I was in tears. And I was in absolute tears. And it got to the point where on the way home, I was considering to self-harm myself, jumping off a bridge to absolutely annihilate my legs. And the bridge wasn't high enough to take my life, but it was high enough to go, if I do this, I could seriously damage my legs here and not have to dance for the rest of my year, or possibly life. And it got to the point where I was crying, where then it turned into laughter. Like this kind of, you know, this unbelievable type of laughter where you just pull yourself out of it, or when someone tells it's so stupid, you just got to like a small chuckle at them, like, and that's what it was. It turned into this. Wow. You know, like 7 years ago, you were vying for this position. You wanted to be in this company, and now you're in tears and you're crying. And then it walked from there. It was just this wake up call, like, actually, I'm in control of my life. Yeah. If I don't like it, I don't need to be here. If I can leave this place, you know, what's keeping me here? It's not the happiness, because I'm not happy. Yeah. You know? And like I said earlier, you take away dancing, you take away the art. I'm still Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander. I know who I am. Mm-hmm. I don't need this company to justify my indigeneity here. I know well and truly I was a traditional dancer before then. So, and what was more important for me was that I was taking a position from a young black fella that really wanted those positions. That, you know, the young fella that I was 7 years ago was still vying for this role right now. So I was like, I can't take this. I'm not enjoying it. I don't want to be here. And at the moment I'm taking a spot that someone really wants to take. So I'm done. Like, and it was in June that year that I was like, done. I'm out. Yep. It was before the Sydney season finished. We did this whole tour, came to Canberra, and I was like, yep, let's go. I'm out of here. And from then it was like, yep, full blown, I'm out of here, done. Yeah. Yeah.
And did the weight sort of lift then?
The weight lifted when I went and spoke to a therapist. I went and spoke to a performance therapist. Yep. And, you know, the stigma of mental health within society in general, but Indigenous communities as well, is such a toxic one. And I went and spoke to this lady, and she she's like, we're going to speak for an hour and a half for the first consultation. And I was like, an hour and a half? That's a long time. So yeah, we're just going to get to know you. And, you know, I got into it. We started talking. She's like, I don't need to stop you here. We've been speaking for 2.5 hours. And I was like,
wow.
And that was the start of being, I guess, relieved from all that weight, all that pressure, you know.
Yeah.
Here I am living what everyone would expect to be the dream job, you know. You see the glitz and glamour of everything in today, you know, whether it's NBA teams or it's our art companies. You see the finished product on stage and you're like, oh, you must be so amazing. And here I am dealing with mental health issues, struggling with, am I being outlandish, ungrateful? No, like, I'm not. So, and that was the start of it, the weight being lifted off my shoulders. And then once I spoke to her, once I knew I was leaving, and it just opened up a world of possibilities. Because in a sense, when you're dancing full time for a company, they own you, they own your body, they own my social media account. Technically, it was like telling me to take stuff down as well. So,
right.
Yeah. Which I understand as well. But yeah, it started to relieve a lot of pressure on myself and expectations, you know, and that feels great. It feels really good. Yeah.
Fantastic. Your creativity, I should say, and passion for your culture, of course, just doesn't stop there at all. It's just exploded into all these other different art forms, not just dance. Tell me a little bit about your love now of photography and videography.
When people ask me what I do, I just say I'm a storyteller. It doesn't limit me to one platform, you know.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things was every time I got introduced, whether it was from in interviews or my aunties and uncles, cousins, friends or family, it was always, this is Luke, this is my nephew, this is my friend, he's from Bangara.
Yeah.
And it really just pigeonholed me, like, and it was a major part of my identity, which scared me because I'm much, you know, everyone is much more than their job.
Yeah.
The job is, and like I said, I could leave these things and I'd still be Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. But I identify now as a storyteller, not a multidisciplinary artist. I think storyteller is more ingrained in my community and my heritage. That is dancing, that is photography, videography, acting, modeling. Patty loves to give me a bit of hell for that. Podcasts, radio shows, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I found that the platform of photography for me, which I was going to start off with a YouTube channel, my big goal while with Bangara was a YouTube channel. But I fell into photography. And for me, it's about telling our narrative behind the lens, not having the white gaze tell the story of indigenous stories, you know, and being able to twist and you know, meddle with it and to fit their agenda. So when I picked up the camera, the goal was to show and highlight what I want to see in my people. Because I didn't grow up with that positive reinforcement on television and stuff like that, you know. I think off the top of my head, I had Ernie Dingo on Getaway. I had, and I'm just like, no, I want kids to see the strength and beauty within our culture from a black person's perspective. I want to show the positive reinforcements of it, and I want to be able to do that for my people, but also documenting the struggles as well within today's society and what we're dealing with in our generation, and not being able to twist it, you know. So that's a huge part of what I do now and what I try to do. Again, as an independent artist for the Western terms, photography is really expensive, buddy.
It's an expensive hobby, mate.
It's an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an important one.
Yeah.
And just one of the sad things is, you know, like we got all these protests and all these significant things that are happening within Indigenous communities.
Yep.
That people aren't getting photos of, you know. I just got sent a photo of my mum and dad protesting before I was born.
Oh,
And
wow.
it really hits me. Like I spent this morning writing about that and what that photo means to me, and
Wow.
what I get from it. And they were lucky enough to know the photographer. Um, but a lot of these people, they don't get these opportunities to have properly taken photos.
Yeah.
Whether it's a protest, whether it's a Indigenous gathering like Dance Rights up here in Sydney, Yarbin, or any of these festivals, you go to these websites that take photos of people and they have that watermark on it, which I understand to make money. I get that. But that image is yours. You are that image.
Yeah.
Without you, that image wouldn't exist. So I highly, I put it out there that if anyone sees themselves in my images, to hit me up, and I'll send you the file, especially Indigenous people, because it's such an important part of our history and for the future, to show this to their kids, their generations, and stuff like that. So that's a huge part of just documenting Indigenous life in contemporary Sydney city, wherever I am, and wherever I get to be flown to as well.
That's awesome. If you do want to check out some of Luke's photos and videos, BL_snaps is one of the accounts, and Bala Luke is the other one, BALA Luke. On Bala Luke.
Yeah, means brother.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, everyone thought it means baller.
Yeah.
No, it's Bala Luke.
Ah, okay, cool. Oh, that's awesome. There is an incredibly beautiful and powerful video on your Instagram page, on the Balaluk page, that I would encourage people to go and check out and see for yourself. But it's you walking through the streets of Sydney, just in a pair of jeans, you're barefoot, you've got the traditional ochre paint on.
Yep.
You've got it all over on your face, on your body, on your arms. How was the experience of shooting that? Because watching it is powerful, but
the first thing I got to do is shout out to the videographer. He's a Canberra boy by the name of Jamie Morris. He's over at Burrows Digital. I put a call out one day asking for a few of my mates just to hold my camera for me to shoot some of these images, and he followed my work, my Instagram, and was like, I'll come up and I'll shoot for you. And I was like, I got no money. I just want to play with somebody. He's like, no, I love what you do. I'm non-Indigenous, but I really want to help amplify your voice and offer you my skills. I'll drive up from Canberra and I'll film for you and edit and everything.
Wow.
And I was like, that absolute open heart of giving just blew my mind from this brother. Hey, like, and it still does to this day. He's constantly hitting me up with any ideas, but the concept has always been there for me, just to help showcase that we are walking in two worlds. We've got the cultural world that we have to abide by and try to forever regain from all the lost knowledge, but also try to adapt to this Western world. And people think, you're born in the Western world. It's easy. And it's like, no, it's a lot more difficult than you think, having to juggle both traditional and modern responsibilities. It's not as easy as you seem to be, and as it seems to be. Sorry. So and the society that we're in now, back in 1788 or whenever it was, and everyone came over, it wasn't built with the Indigenous population in mind. It wasn't built with us to succeed. So to navigate these worlds, it's quite a difficult one. So I wanted to make sure that the city saw my colours, my true colours, to see my black Aboriginal Torres under skin, my traditional paint-up from my mother's side, taught to me by Darren Compton of Muggera Dances. And
it's beautiful. That paint is beautiful.
Yeah, and to walk barefoot in the city, and for traditional people, the connection to country is important. But in the city, we're always 2 to 3 centimeters away from real connection to country, because we're always wearing shoes. So it was a point of emphasis to make sure I walk around the city barefoot and connect to Gadigal land here of the Eora Nation and pay respect to the people here, first contact here. And just to play with little subtleties and, what do you call it, like subliminal messages there with the Cook statue, with the bird cages, with all of that they're going through, cop cars going past. So the less we forget. The thing is, Australia, I try to figure out what Australia's cultural identity is without its Indigenous people, and what do they hold dearest to their heart, like we do with our sacred sites, with Uluru, with the sacred site that was bombed in WA, the start of reconciliation. What is it that Australia holds dearest to them? And for me, it's the Anzac, because I do as well. So there's a little bit of a nod to the Anzacs in there with the less we forget sign, but it's also a nod to less we forget as well. It's got a double meaning to it for me.
Yeah.
And the brother there, Jamie, he was wild because people kept staring at me throughout the whole day. People were like, man, people were just absolutely just gawking at you, staring. I was like, well, brother, that's a good thing, regardless if they're looking at me with a positive view or a negative. Because for the negative people, they hold that hate, and they need to see the pride that I'm walking with. For the positive, it's because, for the positive mob, they get to see me shine as well. Like, regardless of it, they get to see a proud black fella walk the streets of Sydney barefoot, paint on, with absolutely no F's given. I'm walking with pride, and whatever they view me as, they can't stop me. So that was it. And that's a part of the positive reinforcement I need to show kids out there. They struggle with identity. Not all of them. A lot of kids and Indigenous people struggle with this identity and where we sit in society. So to show that we all walk with strength and walk with heart is the number one goal of my work. Yeah.
Tell me about the Black Lives Matter rally, the Indigenous Lives Matter rally in Sydney that you went along to, that you were saying that you felt it was important to document it and take video and take photos. What was the vibe there in Sydney?
The vibe for me was, before I got there, was uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
The day before, the night before, not even the day, but the night before, 5, 6 o'clock p.m., the protest was deemed unauthorized and illegal. And as a black man, I see the photo of my mum and dad, and I'm like, I'm going to this protest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go and fight for my rights. Not even if it's not a movement that is trending right now. This is a protest my parents have been to 33, 34 years ago. This is a protest our ancestors have fought for many, many generations. It was the first time that I had to get myself mentally prepared of being arrested. I think the sentence was 6 months in jail with a possible $11,000 fine.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm sitting at home by myself, listening to music, getting my camera gear ready, mentally preparing myself that this could be my last day for 6 months in my house, sleeping in this bed.
Wow.
And I don't drink, I don't smoke, I've never been in a fist fight in my life. I try to be as respectful as possible, just to break negative stereotypes that are put upon us. The worst thing I'll probably do here in Sydney is jaywalk. But even then, I'll jaywalk when other non-Indigenous people jaywalk, so I'm like not in trouble.
Yeah, wow.
And that was the thing. I had a group of friends that have never been to a protest that came with us, and I was like, guys, this isn't illegal. It's a chance that there was 3 black males in the room. I was like, there's a chance that we're getting arrested today. A high chance. I had my lawyers, another Canberra fellow down there, Pierre Johansson down there. He gave me some sound advice, like with his phone number on my wrist, just in case I had my GoPro attached to my chest and had that recording most of the day to see if just covering all ends here.
Yeah, wow.
And about 2 blocks away, I hear chants, and I'm thinking this protest is illegal. There's only going to be a handful of us. I get there, and there's a count of 30 to 50,000 plus people. and I'm like, oh, here we like.
Wow.
It's a, I don't know what the right word again it is to describe that feeling, but a sense of relief is definitely one of them. And then during the protest, they deemed the protest legal. It was an authorized protest by these two lawyers. I think they were in Dubbo that were fighting tirelessly.
Oh, wow.
To help get that overturned. And the sense of relief once that over the PA system that was like, it's illegal, let the people march, was like everyone cheered with absolute elation. It was such a weird feeling from thinking I'm going to be arrested and being unsure to just like, I'm good now, I'm all right.
Let's do this. Yeah.
Let's go, let's do this. But the turnout as well, it was one of the biggest turnouts I've ever seen ever here in Sydney, you know, and people like, does that give you hope? Does that give you hope for change? And I was like, well, no, not really, because we're still protesting within the legal limits. But I haven't yet seen the turnout to see the aftermath. Are they going to keep turning out?
Yeah.
I don't put my hope in allies. I would love to, but the hope that I have day in, day out is instilled with the resistance and the strength and fight that my people have been fighting for all these years. You know, I can't put it in the government. I can't put it in these other entities. I've got to keep it within. So my people give me inspiration and hope, and that resilience and resistance is what is instilled in me. Is what instills my hope. So to see that many people, of course, it was such an amazing feeling that we weren't in this fight alone. But to see the same brothers and sisters out there, some might even say taking a back seat instead of leading them. You know, there's a lot of people that were usually lead our protests here that were just in the crowd and they were watching and observing, which was nice. You know, leaders know when not to lead, and that was an inspiration to me, just seeing them go, okay, no, this is not my time to be that person. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I can't understand how difficult it must be for you during like this historic time, because it's a historic time. We've got COVID-19, and then we've rolled into this sort of national time, international even time of reflection, and just holding that mirror up and confronting, I guess, some of that shame that we, I guess, keep hidden away. But what it seems to me that when people are faced with that challenge, they can go one of two ways. They can respond to that challenge by opening up and listening and becoming more compassionate and receptive to change, and the other option seems to be just digging toes in, fighting harder against change.
Yeah,
I worry that during this time that you might feel overwhelmed by those voices that are digging their toes in. And I can only sympathise with you about how that must feel. You know, as a white guy, I can't know. But are you able to limit your exposure to that? I guess I'm thinking of like social media and all that sort of where it can get really toxic. Are you able to limit your exposure to that?
It's not. I don't think it's about limiting it for me. The current political climate and where my people sit within Australia is what inspires my art. What inspires what I do. What I need, what I have figured out, especially with my time with Bengali, is the coping mechanisms of how I deal with that. Gym junkie, for instance, you know, I try to get a session in before we jump on the phone.
Yeah, right.
To no avail. I went there, did a few squats, and came back home. I was like, but that's still part of the process for me.
Mm-hmm.
But hearing you acknowledge that, you know, brings tears. You know, it's an emotional time, and it has been really tough. My profile jumped by 2,000 plus followers.
Wow.
Mainly non-Indigenous people and, you know, well-hearted, minded people that are really wanting to be supportive but in the same sense, people saying sorry to me and explaining the ignorance that they are waking up to, and that's a lot more. That's still more emotional baggage put on me. I'm not a black father in a church. It felt like, forgive me, Bala, for I've sinned, and I acknowledge that it comes from a place of a pure heart. I know where it comes from, but it's also really difficult. Thanks for acknowledging that. But it's been a really tough 3 weeks, highlighting the injustices within the world's, I guess, systematic oppression of coloured people, black, Indigenous people, but also opening the light and further shining the light on our injustices here in Australia, and we have this amazing turnout around Australia, and then a few days later you got Prime Minister saying there's no slavery in Australia. And I'm only one person with 12K following, and I'm going up against people like that on the national radio station. And then 2 days later we get Peter Gleeson writing that Indigenous people and African Americans, or I think he wrote Negroes, are the problem to themselves or damaging to themselves. And you're like, what the heck? And then a few days later you get another lady in the Daily Telegraph saying that white people need to protect their culture. We need to protect our culture because what we're doing, what the Indigenous people are doing here in this country right now, is a danger to it. Not like climbing Uluru, or not like blowing up sacred sites, but like tearing down a 141-year-old statue in Hyde Park, a man-made object that can be replaced. This idea of we're trying to erase history. You can't erase history, or you can't. Well, this system has shown that we've erased history. You've totally erased one side of history. You're not telling both sides of the story here, and that's what's really contradictory with all this stuff. Like, you've got footage, you've got images of Indigenous people in chains. There's documents on stolen wages for supposedly the smarter race. Ignoring this evidence is absolutely ridiculous. So that's where I find myself fighting up against the wall. I can release a post and it can be well received. I can do this, but then a prime minister, a world leader with in a well-developed country with all the information at his hand, says some crap like that, regardless of him. And then 2 days later saying sorry. Like, don't say, no, you say what you said. You said you didn't mean New South Wales, even though New South Wales had its fair share as well. So, and constantly giving, in the media, constantly giving platforms on Indigenous issues to non-Indigenous people. And like I said to you earlier, I've had to turn down a lot of media requests in this time period because it's not a safe space. Yeah. Do I go on Channel 7 and be the only coloured black, the coloured guy against 4 other non-Indigenous white people? Do I go on Channel 9 and go against them? Where do I go? Do I go to Channel 10 and fight the likes of CAC and Joe Hildenberg? Like, these spaces aren't safe for me to put my story up. And the thing is, we can't equally change history as much as you do, but you have, or framed it in the sense that it suits you. If you want, and look, don't get me wrong, I don't know if I'm about tearing the statues down, but I am for telling the whole story. And that's the thing. If you're going to say discovered 1788, first of all, lie, absolute lie. But then also on top of that, tell the whole history. Tell the history. Tell the history of what's the guy, Macquarie, on the Macquarie Street here. Tell the history how he signed off on the Appin massacre that murdered, totally annihilated the community down there. Of 100 plus people, pushed them over the hill. Tell that story. That's not erasing the history that he created this street or created that street, but it's telling another important part of history.
Yeah.
And that's where this Western narrative of us changing the history is such a joke, because the power has always been in their hands. And we don't have that same type of power. We're not changing history. We're telling our side and our part, because every side has two stories. So yeah, that's where I'm getting really frustrated when people that have profiles and platforms on bigger platforms than I do spill absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
When there's documented reports that totally debunk their comments.
Do you engage much with?
No, I pick and choose.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where when people are coming to ask for advice or are coming to argue.
Yeah.
And it's taken time. I used to be a keyboard warrior.
Yeah.
I used to be the guy that fought everyone, and that's a losing battle mentally. And people. Yeah. The biggest thing is you can't deny my lived experience. So that's where I try to approach my stuff. But I try not to speak about Indigenous people in remote communities, because that's not my lived experience. I don't try to speak on behalf of black women, because that's not my experience.
Mm-hmm.
I try to speak on my experience as a black man in today's society, and that's what's so crazy, is that a lot of, and when I say white Australia, I don't necessarily mean the skin. I mean the system, but a lot of white Australia have the nerve to talk about the black experience by not being black.
Yeah.
I would never talk about, the LGBTQI plus community, because that's not who I am. I wouldn't talk about the inequalities in the workplace for a woman, because that's not my experience of who I am. I can't say this is not make-believe, because I've never walked a mile in those shoes. So why are you discrediting my lived experience as a black man in this country?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do I engage? To the ones that I think I can educate, that are looking to be educated, but most of the time, no, it's just a block. And it's blocked. I've blocked a lot of friends growing up in Canberra, but it's in a sense it's not worth it, because people aren't ready to hear the history or anything like that. And I don't see any of these All Lives Matter people protesting for refugees or for climate or for black people or LGBTQ plus. I don't see any of these All Lives Matter people out there on the front lines.
Yeah. So true. How do you give yourself a break, mate? How do you so is it the gym, like you were saying? Is that sort of the brain break?
It's also basketball,
Yes.
Basketball was my first love.
Yeah.
And then it was dance, but then dance became a job, so then I had to find another outlet.
Yeah.
And it was basketball. So the last article I was talking about in the Daily Telegraph, I was absolutely furious. Like clenching my fist. It was the third of it was Morrison, it was Peter Gleeson, then it was this article. It was a cherry on top. It just pushed me over the edge.
Yeah.
And I was walking home, probably like biting my lip, fist clenched, opened the door, and I just bought some boxing mitts with my partner here, and
yep.
I was like, get the mitts, let's go, we'll go. I need to hit something.
Good on you.
And and she was like no, and she threw me the basketball, and she knew.
Yeah.
She knew what we needed, so what I needed, and she literally just rebounded for me.
Yeah.
She's not a basketballer, a sporty person by any means, but she stood there and hit 10 from the corner, one dribble pull up, bang. Move on to the next one, and it was just got myself into this rhythm of just put the ball in the hole, in the hole, and it just, so, and if it's not that, it is the gym. But the gym is my creative space as well. So,
you come up with your best ideas while you're in the gym?
Yeah, well, I listen to a lot of spoken word, and I listen to a lot of speeches, and I listen to a lot of, podcasts. So it helps influence my knowledge, and it helps me write my thoughts, and helps me articulate my thoughts as well. So after a set on the bench press, I'll get up and I'll write my notes, or I'll write a piece of poetry or whatever it may be. So the gym for me is actually, I guess, someone's yoga or library. It's my creative space.
It's awesome. Luke Currie-Richardson, storyteller, mate. You say that, you know, you're not fully confident in talking and having a yarn, and you try to use your creative outlets in other ways. But I think you've spoken beautifully today, mate. Thank you for coming on and having a yarn.
No, I do. I really appreciate being given access to this platform and you helping amplify my voice in today's society, my man. I really appreciate it.
Anything I
Thank
can
you,
do.
Canberra Theatre, as well. I really, really do appreciate the support that they've given me over the years. You know, Canberra boy.
We're very proud, mate. We're very proud of you.
Thank you very much,
mate. Keep doing what you're doing. We'll keep an eye on those Instagram feeds for everything that you're up to, all the latest creations. Keep promoting that pride and that culture and that identity, mate, and it's amazing. Make sure you get along to those Instagram pages again, BL_snaps and Bala Luke, BALA Luke. Thank you so much again, mate, for coming on.
Cheers, Bala.